Hello, I'm Leanne Young. The first blossoms are starting to bloom. A change of season is coming. Our city is ready for it. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, a special totem pole is back with its people. And suggestions for sustainable springtime meals. But first, a new graphic novel series aims to reduce climate anxiety. There is an International Day of the Polar Bear, and it's coming up at the end of the month. And we have local authors Deborah, Katz, Henriquez, and Paul Shore, who are marking it out in their own special way with a graphic novel series dealing with climate change anxiety. So welcome to the both of you. Nice to have you back, Deborah. So Deborah, let's start with you. Can you introduce me to Steve and Eve? So Steve the polar bear, what's he doing in your book?
So Steve is a polar bear that is living in Iqaluit up north, and he doesn't have enough food to eat and is getting himself into all kinds of mischief, finding other ways to find food. And he serendipitously meets Eve, who crash lands in the Arctic. And
Eve the electric vehicle.
Eve is the electric vehicle. Yeah. That's right. And they start off on the first of many adventures together.
Very cool. And so, Paul, how is the story of, Arctic warming and climate change, how is that woven into this graphic novel?
It's woven throughout this story. The bear wearing a life ring because his sea ice is melting and he has to swim a lot more than he normally might like to. Everywhere in the story, we address climate action with a look at hope and opportunity rather than despair.
Right, that's great. Some uplifting in many ways, which is very important because a lot of children are now dealing with anxiety around climate change. So how do you deal with that in your book?
So climate anxiety has been rising in the last several years. Children are experiencing this at unprecedented levels because of the climate change we're experiencing. Mm-hmm. And the two things we know that are the most effective for addressing this in children are hope and action. And so we have used this book as a vehicle to instill hope in children and help them to look forward to the future through hopeful actions and inspiration.
Let me tell you, I think adults need it too. Hope and action, those are great. So, and the illustrations in this book are beautiful. So Paul, tell me a little bit about your illustrator.
Yes, Prashant Miranda. The universe really did us a favor in introducing us to Prashant through a friend who works for Greenpeace, as a matter of fact. We met Prashant, he lives in Lund, BC. We immediately fell in love with his art. And within a few months, we were all working together.
It's gorgeous. I love it. So, Deb and Paul, neither of you are really authors by trade. I know, Deb, you've written another book before, but you guys did some different things. You're a nurse and you're in high tech. How did you guys end up writing a graphic novel?
So I have been writing since I was a child. It's always been a passion of mine. And to me, human health and the health of the planet go together. And I love the magic of stories. And I had published a book in 2017. Paul published a book at the same time. And he approached me with this idea to write a book about climate change together. And the rest is history.
The rest is history. Okay, the book's not quite available yet. So what are you hoping that readers will take away? What are you hoping that they'll learn and they'll feel from reading your graphic novel?
Yeah, it's really our hope that children take away from this to take care of the planet and to take care of each other, to help uplift each other. We're really hoping to inspire and uplift children through this story in this era of climate change that can be kind of heavy for the most part. So lifting them up, giving them hope, inspiring them, those are our goals.
Oh, those are great goals and a great message. And so as I mentioned at the very beginning, it's International Polar Bear Day. So how are the two of you marking it?
Well, we will be launching the book at Arts Umbrella. So we're going to have an actual party and launch event there, and lots to do with polar bears. And we're going to be encouraging people to think about what they can do to in their lives individually and in communities to help the planet.
Well, it's a wonderful message. Thank you to the both of you for making the time to stop here, introducing us to Steve and Eve. Good luck with the book launch.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's time for one of our favorite features when we showcase a number of the photographs sent in by you, our audience. Noel Alam was out walking in Sechelt recently and took in this lovely rainbow. Thank you, Noel. And Laurie Stewart took in the sunrise off of the Goose Spit at Comox. Wow, what a sky. Thank you. And finally, back to another rainbow. This one in Deep Cove, sent in by Christine Luz. Amazing. Send us more. You can email them to bcphotos@cbc.ca. That's bcphotos, all one word, @cbc.ca. Well, we did just mark Valentine's Day, but love should be recognized all year long. We're going to reintroduce you to Jessica Kruger, who calls herself the stubborn baker. This episode, she describes her own love story.
Obviously, I show my love through baking, so in many ways, that's like my expression of love to people. Last year, I did chocolate chip cookie cakes in the shape of a heart. That was kind of like my main pre-order thing, and then decorated cookies. I like to do like little avocados that say, "You guac my world." Some dinosaurs that say, "You're dynamite." I feel like I actually have a pretty wide range. Like I've made some angry I'm single on Valentine's Day cakes in the past. On actual Valentine's Day, I'm pretty much always working. It's a big baking day. I would say when I first decided to start dating, I was definitely like really nervous about it. Being someone in a chair, I didn't know what the reaction was going to be. You know, I had a few bad experiences before I got to the really good one. I had one person say like that they didn't want to meet me in public because they'd be embarrassed being seen with someone in a chair, which was kind of my worst nightmare coming to life. But expectation of what it means to be in a wheelchair is so far from the reality of it. And I think even Juan didn't necessarily know what it was going to mean. He was definitely nervous about it in the beginning. But once they kind of give me the opportunity to show them, they see that, you know, I go sit skiing and kayaking and play rugby and do all the things that able-bodied people can do just in my own way. And yeah, you just have to give me the chance to show you. Juan is my husband. It's my first year as him being my husband for Valentine's Day, so that feels weird to say. We had our first date at Granville Island. We went for brunch. He ordered his eggs Benedict with the eggs scrambled because he was so nervous. So that was a little bit weird, but also endearing. And yeah, it was a great first date. He's definitely got a calm to him that I don't have. So while I'm stressing about 5,000 things, he's the person to say, you know, take a breath. We don't need to panic about this, and kind of help bring me back down to earth. 2.5 years after we were dating, we went to Disneyland together, and that was where he proposed. I was completely shocked, like so shocked to the point that the first thing I said was like, "Are you serious? Is this a joke?" As he's down on one knee with a ring in front of me, I didn't even believe it. But yeah, obviously I said yes. And then we started planning our wedding. The pandemic hit, so we started postponing our wedding and ended up just getting married this last August. So I made my own wedding cake. A little bit overwhelming for sure. I thought I was gonna do it like well in advance. Lots of things coming up last minute. I kept like pushing the cake and the cookies off till closer to, and it ended up being like 3 days before the wedding that I was doing both. And, you know, 12-hour day in the kitchen to try and get those things done, and 5,000 other things waiting at home to do when I got back. But it all came together in the end, and somehow it ended up going exactly as I was hoping it would. Now I have this skill that I can use to bring people joy, and I get to use it for friends and family as well as customers. And typically sleep is the thing that gets compromised in order to fit everything in. Usually it's if the choices are spend some time with Juan or get 8 hours of sleep, I'm always going to choose spending some time with Juan. I really cherish my relationships, and I never want to make anybody feel like they're not the most important person in my life. So yeah, and not having a lot of time means I'm also not the best about, preparing a lunch. So when Juan just shows up out of the blue with food or to come rescue me from a long day, I definitely feel just really grateful and excited to see him. He does really enjoy a sweet treat. I think it's been dangerous to have me as his wife for sure. Oh, first try. I feel like for me, love is surrounding yourself with people that allow you to be exactly who you are and feel embraced for being that.
You bust a hole in the back already.
Today I'm going to show you how to do a feathering technique on your cookies. Now you're going to take your skewer and you're going to put it in the icing and pull straight down. I'm doing all of this fairly quickly because the icing starts to dry pretty fast. You can repeat this step for each of the polka dots and create hearts all over. Wishing you and all of your loved ones a very sweet Valentine's Day from the Stubborn Baker.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This is our Vancouver.
Coming up, big bird bones. Scientists find the remains of extra-large penguins. Johanna Wagstaffe will be here after the break.
Here's one for you. What's black and white, flightless, and 340 pounds? Turns out that would be the largest known penguin to ever waddle the earth. A new study has just published evidence for the massive seabird, more than 3 times the size of the largest penguin alive today, that swam in the oceans around New Zealand more than 50 million years ago. Scientists unearthed bones from this giant penguin, which they named Kumamanu, and those of another new species on a New Zealand beach back in 2016 and 2017. Giant boulders had split open from the tide, revealing these 2 new species, the size of which astonished the paleontologists. The team then created models of the bones using laser scanners, which allowed them to compare the fossils to other species of flying and diving birds. The team then approximated the historic bird's weight at 340 pounds from their flipper size. Keep in mind the largest penguin today, the emperor penguin, weighs between 55 and 100 pounds. You can see the lead author of the paper here standing beside a cutout of the size of this beast. Scientists think their larger body size would have helped conserve heat in cold waters, which may have allowed them to migrate from New Zealand to other parts of the world. It would have also helped to ward off predators. Compared to some mammals, penguins reached their maximum body size very early in their evolutionary history, probably not long after they lost their ability to fly about 60 million years ago. And that, folks, is probably the upper limit of size for flightless birds. No kidding. And now, you're Science Smart. If you have a science question on your mind, send me an email and I'll try to get it answered.
Hi, I'm Lindsay, and this is Our Vancouver.
Thank you, Johanna. You are watching Our Vancouver. I'm Leanne Young. We are about to get a taste of a special event planned in one of our city's seafood restaurants. It's a wine-focused dinner with BC wine, of course. Steve Duyzer is the managing director of the Fish Company, and we have Chef Wang Dang, who's going to be working with him on this event, which will be happening very soon. So welcome to the both of you. Thanks for joining me. You already had very great rapport before the camera started rolling. How did you guys meet?
Well, we met at Forte's back in the year 2000.
Joe Forte's, that's the one that's up by
Forte's,
Robson. Yeah.
Worked
in the kitchen right behind the line all together, just busy days.
Yeah.
And then you've been friends since 20-something odd years?
We've been friends since then, since 2000, so 23 years and counting.
Great. And now you guys are back together in the kitchen doing something.
Okay.
What is this wine-focused dinner we're doing?
So we're partnering with Joie Winery on the Okanagan. Alistair took over with the group about a year and a half ago.
And Alistair's the new owner?
Alistair's he's a chef and somm, and now owner of Joie Vineyard,
Oh, great, great. And they're over in Naramata, right?
Yes.
You've got some of their wines there.
They have some of their wines here, yeah.
Are you going to pour them, Steve?
It's
10 o'clock in the morning, but yeah, let's
past
do
10.
this.
We can do that, for sure. So this is the Joie Noble Blend.
Okay.
One. Yeah,
All
it's
right.
delicious.
I like to say that was my gateway into drinking wine.
You'd like to say, or you know
I,
for sure?
I know that.
The classic.
It is a classic. It's a BC classic. Okay, and there's other things on the table, and it's beautiful. So, Wang, what have you got in front of you here?
Well, one of the signature sablefish dishes off the menu at Vancouver Fish Company is their adobo marinated sablefish. So it's BC sablefish, which is a great sustainable seafood option, whether it be farmed or wild. There's both very great options available for consumers these days, especially with sablefish. And it's probably one of the best fish to cook and to entertain with because it just cooks so nicely.
It's so forgiving, I find that fish.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And adobo style, which is very interesting. So some Filipino roots in there?
Yeah, a little bit. The executive chef of Vancouver Fish Company, he's also mixed breed like myself. So we always sneak in some Asianisms into our
right
cuisine.
Right up my alley. Okay. So tell me about how is the fish made?
So the fish, we first take the fish and we have an adobo marinade. The adobo has all the different styles of chilies in there, ground up, mixed with olive oil, and we just let it sit. And then to cook it, we just slowly broil it. A lot of people, I think, know the like miso glazed sablefish, but it's sort of a different take on that. It still gets all the nice sweetnesses and the caramels, and then you've got that nice rich buttery fish inside.
Right, beautiful.
So-
Okay, and so this is going to be one of the dishes as part of the wine dinner?
We haven't really figured out which dish. Oh, yeah. Hold on, let's start with that.
Of course,
Thank you.
yes. And Wang has to cook, so.
I know, chef's always stuck in the kitchen.
So this is one of our current menu items.
Okay.
So to not make the wine dinner, but
Not yet. We haven't picked the menu totally yet, so you know.
yeah.
And what's unique about this event for you guys?
Well, it's our first collaboration with a vineyard, and we're aiming to do about one collaborative event a month for the rest of this year. So the first one up, obviously, is Joie. We're working on potential partnership with, was it Feast, Wang?
Yeah, Feast. There's Feast, which is the food festival in April. Not to mention there's several other chefs and wineries that are really interested in just, utilizing this beautiful space on Granville Island. That's, there's the Fisherman's Wharf, just a hop, skip, and a jump away. So, all these different things of, hyper-regional Granville Island community that we really want to celebrate.
Cool, yes, of course, and all this is very BC focused.
It's all BC.
Yeah, and Steve, you're a Somm, so that's why this whole wine thing pulling
I'm
in.
a chef first.
You're
before
chef first,
Somm, yeah.
and then Somm. Okay,
Yeah.
all the two of the best things in the world. Love it. Okay. All right, so Wang, what are we putting on the plate right now?
So what we have here is we have roasted eggplant baba ganoush. We have a chermoula sauce, some little roasted brassicas.
And the cauliflower, the broccoli is there,
and the sunchokes, which is a very Canadiana ingredient. And then we have
Gosh, I'm gonna have to try this.
the sablefish that I just roasted on TV just like that,
Beautiful.
and then finished with some
TV's magic.
toasted pine nuts.
Okay.
And this stuff is great. So
And
just
so, Wang, I know you're very big into, sustainability around seafood in particular. Why is it so important, and is it even possible to do?
well, it's a challenge. Feeding the world with food is a challenge nowadays, and it's no longer just fresh fish is fresh is best because there's not as much of it out there anymore. And if we have opportunities to have fresh seafood, as long as it's harvested or caught in a manner that there will be more for generations to come, then it's great. And even with farming and stuff like that, we want to make sure that we can feed ourselves with all these delicious, beautiful ingredients. And BC is one of those environments that has one of those places and terroirs on Earth that have such an amazing bounty of great ingredients that we can share with the rest of the world and ourselves.
Absolutely. We want everyone to be able to try the sablefish. It's delicious. Thank you so much, Chef Wang Dang, for being here, and Steve Duyzer for being here today.
Thank you.
It's great to have you both.
Cheers.
If you want to see some live music, England's electro-pop star Elderbrook plays the Commodore for 2 nights, February 22nd and 23rd.
It feels like a Sunday. Watch how the sun keeps say, smoking things up my window.
And Swedish pop star Tove Lo plays Rogers Arena, February 24th.
Hey, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music, and sometimes it takes years of perseverance to get recognized in the music business, and sometimes success will come early. Toronto musician Julian Taylor is one of the few that has experienced both over his long 25, almost 30-year career in the Canadian music industry. These days, he's a roots singer-songwriter of quietly moving protest songs. But Julian Taylor first found success more than 20 years back with his rock band Staggered Crossing. That's this guy, Julian Taylor, on lead vocals there and guitar with his band Staggered Crossing, going back to 2001, and that was their hit Further Again. After the breakup of Staggered Crossing a few years later, Julian Taylor, who is of combined Caribbean and Mohawk ancestry, went independent and solo, something he has, for the most part, maintained ever since. After several years of releases, Julian Taylor finally broke through again in 2020 with his solo acoustic record, The Ridge.
And follow her out of the front door, down the path through the bushes and past the pond. My sister and I used to catch frogs there under the household, and we had to move on. Now there's a westbound wind blowing through the ridge again. It's staying or go outside and wait for it to die, but either way, it never ends.
That's Julian Taylor with his beautiful song, The Ridge, from his breakout album of the same name, a very personal record that really resonated with listeners and critics alike, earning Taylor all sorts of nominations: 2 Juno nominations, a Canadian Folk Music Award nom, 5 Native American Music Award nominations, and 1 for the Polaris Music Prize. When asked about the landslide of recognition after so many years in the business, Julian Taylor simply said, "I'm making up for lost time." Last year, Julian Taylor released an incredibly moving and deceptively upbeat single, beautifully written in reaction to the discovery of 215 potential unmarked graves of buried Indigenous children at a former residential school in Kamloops. The song is called Seeds, with the key line, "They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds."
Now see you shining strong and clear. No one can stop a good idea, nobody like you. There's nobody like you. I was a flower, I was an oak. I was provoked, and when I awoke, I started grazing for all the things that I need. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds.
That's Julian Taylor from Toronto with his song Seeds from his new album Beyond the Reservoir, which also just got nominated for a 2023 Juno Award. Congratulations, Julian. Seeds is currently climbing the CBC Music Top 20 right now, and that's the song that you need to add to your playlist for this week. I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music, and I'll check in with you again soon.
Coming up, celebrating the intertwining identities of Black Indigenous Canadians. Welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Leanne Young. Black History Month is a time to honor Black Canadians and their communities. For from the pursuit of equity and justice to celebrating cultural richness. But we often don't hear about the experiences of the Afro-Indigenous community. The CBC's Angela Sterrett spoke to 3 Black Indigenous women to talk about the intertwining of their identities and what this month means to them.
This is my mom here, and this is my grandfather, and they're both Black Native.
3 years ago, Tierra Cash moved from the U.S. to Coquitlam to pursue a PhD. Her great-grandmother on her mother's side was Chata and Chalagi, also known as Choctaw and Cherokee. Her great-grandfather on her mother's side was also Chata. They were both also Black. But around the 1830s, the U.S.'s one-drop rule meant
if you had any percentage of Black within you, or you had Black relatives, you were reclassified. So you were either reclassified as white or you were reclassified as Black.
the one-drop rule was outlawed in 1967, but its ripple effects have been far-reaching.
I always knew I was Indigenous growing up, but it's only been in the last, half decade that I've really been able to really find community and to really be able to do ceremony and really be able to have conversations around this.
And despite belonging to a Black community, Cash says her exact African ancestry has been difficult to locate because of a lack of documentation during forced migration through enslavement.
One of the hard things about being Black American is that you don't really have much information on where your people come from. You know that there was a stealing that happened of your ancestors from West Africa. And if you're lucky, you can trace one or two of those ancestors back to Africa. I was able to trace one of them.
For generations, her ancestors have been living in Mississippi, North Carolina, and Tennessee.
Most of what I know about being Black is being Black American. It's generations and generations and generations of people who have been in America since the beginning of, its founding.
While the identities of Black and Indigenous people have been systemically erased, for Tiara and others, those lineages are also defined by resilience, resistance, and reclamation.
This is actually my first time seeing it in person.
It's a sentiment illustrated in this Vancouver mural by Squamish and Namgis artist James Harry and Japanese Trinidadian Lauren Brevner.
This is something 5-year-old me would have loved to see.
A representation she carries in her body.
I'm so proud of my ancestors. I have beautiful, strong Wet'suwet'en and Gitxsan ancestors who advocated for me before they even knew I existed.
Her mother survived day school, and her dad, who was Black from Texas, also survived oppressive and violent government policies of the day.
My dad went to segregated schools, and I know my grandmother also grew up in Jim Crow South and had experienced severe racism and segregation.
She says both sides fought for social justice so she can live safely in the world today. It's something Taylor McCarthy sees too.
My ancestors who fought hard and never gave up.
McCarthy was raised in Tacoma, Washington by her late father, who was Black from Charlotte, North Carolina. At 18, McCarthy moved to the Capilano Reserve with her Squamish mother.
For the reason that we have our songs and dances, for the reasons that I can go to a restaurant as a Black woman, as a Black person in general, I can have a job and I can be in the military. I have a bachelor's degree. It's because of all of my ancestors on both my Black and my Native side.
This Black History Month, she has a message for Black and Indigenous people.
As a Black and Native person, like you're standing on the shoulders of your ancestors who have always been there for you.
Angela Sterrett, CBC News, Vancouver.
This is our Vancouver.
Happy tears were on display in Victoria this past week as a totem pole belonging to a BC First Nation begins its journey home. It was taken from the Newhawk Nation more than a century ago and had been housed at the Royal BC Museum.
If I am coming home, we got to take care of Mother Earth. everything that is on that totem pole has a meaning. Right from the day it was born, it had a purpose. Mother Earth and the Creator. The Creator put us here for a reason, and that reason is life. Times we forget that. The message that came to me through the dream is we have to remind ourselves of who we are, where we come from, why we're here on Mother Earth. Just thank you guys for all coming here today. My family's happy. Our ancestors are rejoicing.
My heart's just filled with joy and warmth and just feels so good. I could feel his spirit from the pole. I wanted to cry. I wanted for joy because I could feel his spirit. Yeah, it felt good.
My great-great-grandfather helped carve it. It's really good that we're getting it back, and I'm really happy. It's nice because we live really far away from Bella Coola, so it's nice having things that like this to kind of remember and get back together with everyone.
I thank the Royal BC Museum for looking after it for a good 100 years now. It gives us that opportunity to bring back our stories. My son here holds the name Papa Silk, and he just received this name on our last potlatch. And the story behind that totem pole is his story. And that's how much it means to us. It's the next generation. I'd like to thank you guys again for all coming here and witnessing this, and it means so much to us. Sorry I got some teary-eyed, but I feel the spirit. It's hard not to.
Coming up, parents and children say a final thank you to a doctor who made a huge difference in their lives. You're watching Our Vancouver. I'm Leanne Young. A beloved children's doctor in Vancouver has died after living with cancer. Paul Moxham, a surgeon at BC Children's Hospital, was known for his ability to put kids at ease. As John Hernandez reports, he made a lasting impression on countless families who are grateful for his care.
My name is Paul Moxham, and I'm a pediatric otolaryngologist at BC Children's Hospital.
Paul Moxham went into work with a smile just about every day, and you could say it was infectious.
One of my favorite things is actually not surgery, it's seeing patients in the clinic. I have a number of silly little magic tricks and things that I employ during that to make them a little more comfortable.
Moxham was a proud doctor at BC Children's Hospital, known for being down to earth, humble, and always good for a laugh.
That is definitely one of the big lessons I took away, the way he used humor to just improve life.
Like many parents, Angela Toth met with many doctors to find the right fit for her daughter who has Down syndrome. The search stopped as soon as they saw Dr. Moxham.
He treated her like a princess, and he oozed attention and joy on her, and she ate it up.
I do treat every child that is in my practice as if they were a member of my family. All I want for them is that which I would want for one of my two daughters or my wife or anyone else.
A passion and warmth that many kids could feel when he walked into the room.
My daughter has this sort of sixth sense of understanding and knowing individuals and where their hearts are at, and she immediately was put at ease.
Moxham was diagnosed with brain cancer in 2021, a battle he fought for 16 months. His family says he never wasted a minute and spent his remaining days laughing and sharing stories, the same lessons he instilled on the families he helped through challenging times.
If you're not crying, you might as well be laughing, like I have said before. He did hard things and he did them well. And I just found that really inspiring. And I wanted to be like that too.
Moxham died on January 13th.
He really left a legacy after 23 years on site. He trained countless residents, fellows, people in the clinic that really he showed how you can put your best foot forward and really put the patient at the center of care.
We can think, we hopefully were impactful today and we did some good work.
Paul Moxham leaves behind a wife, 2 daughters, and immeasurable gratitude from the families he served. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
So they're opened up at the date. So this one is 1882. It's just a book, but you can see how different the pages are and the lettering, the whole typeset. It can take you back to another time. I'm Carol Jackson, and I have what I call Adopt a Book. These are all books that were going to be destroyed at the recycling depot. So people just walk into the garage and take as much as they want. It started when I was at the recycling depot down on Springfield, and somebody put a bunch of books into a compactor and they pressed a button and crunched them. And that offended me so much. I went, what is going on here? And the button presser said, oh, this goes on all day, every day. So I got permission and put together a fairly large shed down at Springfield Recycling Center. And that shed was just unbelievably full of fantastic books. As I started bringing these books back, and even when I was there, people would be taking their recycling and I'd be putting all these things and loading them into my van, and they'd go, oh, look at that. And I go, yeah, look at it, take it, and so it would always be a point of excitement. These are all signed by the author. From the very word go, it was, wow, I'm going to set something up in my garage. And I had just moved into this house, and I happened to have a bunch of milk crates. So I made double door milk crates, and so it was just wall to wall. And it was so fun organizing them. And as I was doing it, people were coming down the driveway with their kids. And so it became such a lifestyle where I met friends, and it was really terrific. There's a couple of types of people. 95% will take maybe a hand, this many. But that 5% would just go nuts and just take anything and everything. Wouldn't even look at the title. It was just free. I figured, well, what the heck? I've got lots if they can use them or whatever, as long as they're not going to get destroyed. So that's how it all started 25 years ago. And there's been an awful lot of books that have come and gone, and people have been appreciating them. And just, it's been a wonderful thing.
This is our Vancouver.
There's been a lot of buzz lately about Netflix's move to prevent the sharing of passwords and accounts. Streaming is now as common as it gets for entertainment. But back in 2002, the movie industry feared the worst as people started downloading films instead of going to the theaters. Sasha Petrusik has that story.
All this tradition, it's hard even to imagine. Movies without marquees, big stars without the big screens, films without the film. And yet, this multi-billion-dollar industry, in one of its most profitable years ever, fears its own demise.
But there were some who resisted. a last alliance of men and elves marched against the armies of Mordor.
Or in this case, an alliance of movie makers against the legions of internet users.
And that database connects to the millions of users around the world.
Users like Ravi Ojla. He uses a program called Kaza to search for movies stored on other people's computers. Internet users who use the same program. Type in Lord of the Rings, a movie not yet released on video.
There you have it.
Dozens of sources pop up. Bootleg computer files of the full movie, ready to download. If you've got a fast connection and hours to spare. On any given day, more than 100,000 titles are available. Ojla has many of them transferred to disk.
I'd rather download it and watch it. It's not worth my money going to the theater and getting the whole theater experience, as they would say. I could just do it at home.
The movie industry can't even guess what this is costing, but the cost is growing. And that's why Canada's movie makers hired Jim Sweeney. He's an ex-cop trying to enforce copyright in cyberspace.
Somebody downloading a movie to their home computer is ethically and morally the same as that same person walking into a Blockbuster video store and walking out without paying for a movie.
What happens if it continues?
Well, the industry would fold up. They wouldn't be able to continue it. It wouldn't be able to survive.
Movie makers have been through this before. Years ago, they tried to stop video recorders and blank cassettes from reaching your home. You know how well that went over. Now they're suing software makers and urging internet providers to limit access. So far, with limited success. Meanwhile, download quality is improving.
Well, most of them are from Southeast Asia, and some have subtitles, some do not. But the quality is actually quite good.
And a growing audience is logging on.
Considering that high-speed access in the U.S. is doubling every month, I mean, you know, subscribers for high-speed connections, Hollywood is very, very worried.
Worried that the liquid crystal screen could soon replace the silver screen. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Ottawa.
At the end of this program, we'd like to tip our hats to our talented photojournalists on staff here at CBC Vancouver. They bring us images in artful ways to give depth and deep character to the stories we cover. Here's a sampling from what they saw this past week. And that's all for Our Vancouver this week. I'm Leanne Young. Thanks for joining us.